Hey there, guys, and welcome back to the Travis and Damian podcast, episode 146. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and more. Today, we are talking about Astro Bot, Concord, PS5 Pro, Spider-Man 4, and more. But as usual, we will talk about our recent activities, starting with Damian.
Yeah, so, the big wave of new games are coming out. So I've been trying my best to, play them, as like the shit out of them as soon as they come out so I can get ready for the new games. So the first one I was interested in was Age of Mythology Retold. So this is a remake of Age of Mythology, which is a spin-off of Age of Empires. I've never really played a lot of Age of Empires. It's another really popular RTS series that I know 2 was very popular in the 90s, and then I know Age of Empires 4 came out a few years ago, which people really liked. I played a bit of 2 a few years ago, and I like it. It's a lot different from StarCraft, which is the one I'm most used to, since this game is more about base building and heavy macro play, which is make bases, make a bunch of gold and money and shit, and then make a bunch of units, which I do like. It just feels very different from StarCraft. It feels a lot slower. You're moving just bigger amounts of units throughout the field. It does feel like you're an actual empire, which is cool. But, the unit responsiveness is not what I'm used to from StarCraft, but still a lot of fun. The only reason I haven't played more Age of Empires is because I think it's cool, but it doesn't have any cool units because it's all based off actual history. I mean, you get war elephants and shit. That's kind of cool. But, you're not getting giant robots or whatever, right? That's what I really like about StarCraft, because I think it's fun to make the big units and kill everyone is great. This is where this comes in, where this is based off mythological stuff. So you have Greek stuff and Egyptian stuff and Norse stuff, and I think that's really neat. So you can make hydras, you can have god powers and shit. It's really cool. Just being able to make Anubises and giant phoenixes. I'm this hits. So I definitely like this a lot more. I think the campaign is a ton of fun. You're kind of going through this one guy's story. It's playing out the whole Greek shit, and he's going through all the different mythological stuff. So he's going through Egypt now, and he's fucking Jack Skellington or whatever, going through all the different Egyptian and Norse shit. So I think that's pretty cool. But yeah, overall it's a lot of fun. I have no interest in playing it multiplayer because I'm washed. I can't play RTS in multiplayer. I'm just gonna get fucked. But just playing the single player, I think there's a lot of content there, because it comes with the base campaign, which is pretty long, and 2 DLCs that came out before it. And I believe they're going to make more DLCs with more campaigns in the future that weren't in the original game, because I know they redid a lot of voice acting and stuff to, sort of future-proof the game for future expansions or whatever. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. I still need to finish the campaign. I haven't finished it yet because Astro Bot came out, but I'll talk about that in a second. Next up, I want to talk about the Persona 3 Reload DLC. So this came out a few days ago, and this is the Answers sort of expansion that came with Persona FES, which came out on the PS2. There's been a lot of controversy around this one because they're selling it for $35, even though it came with Persona 3 originally on the PS2 and stuff, and people are upset. But it wasn't very good. I played a little bit of the Answers on the PS2, and it was very grindy. Some of the story beats were kind of weird, just because some of the characters felt out of character and stuff, and I don't know, I wasn't really a fan of it. Playing this remake version of it does feel a lot better. The difficulty is more in line with how the base game is. It's a bit harder. Some of the shadows are do some more dangerous attacks, but for the most part, if you play through the whole base campaign and now you're playing through this DLC, you're gonna feel it's fine. A lot of characterization seems a bit better, because I remember there was a scene in the beginning that kind of turned off a lot of people off of one character in particular. I didn't notice it in this beginning bit, so I think they cut that out, but I'm not sure. I would need to watch a video or something, because I'm not so super familiar with this DLC to begin with. I only play a little bit of it back in the PS2 after I beat a base Persona 3. But overall, I've been really enjoying it. The game is mostly combat focused. It doesn't have any social links or whatever. You get some little scenes with the characters, but it's mostly do a big dungeon bit, you get some story, and then you do another dungeon bit. And it's good right now. It kind of fits the themes of the game and where it left off, in the original ending and stuff. You get some more background on the characters, some more of their backstory. They sort of I learned, I was depressed back then, but after all the events in Persona 3, I feel better now, so I could look back at that shit and feel fine. So I think that's kind of cool. So it kind of fits into the whole theme of the game and whatever. But it's also pretty meaty. Like I'm 11 hours in right now, and I'm only like halfway through. So it's like a 20-ish hour experience just for a DLC, and I think that's pretty fucking good. So I mean, for Persona standards, that 20 hours is like, oh, that's like nothing, right? But for a DLC, that's pretty good. So for me personally, I think I'm getting my money's worth. I've been enjoying it. So I'll talk more about it once I actually finish it. But yeah, so far so good. And next is Astro Peak, as I like to call it. So yeah, Astro Bot has been making the rounds. It has like a 94 Metacritic and stuff, and people are loving it. And I am no different. I adored this game. I thought it was extremely good. A lot of people have been comparing it to Mario Galaxy or some of the other great Nintendo platformers, and they're not far off. I don't think this game is better than Galaxy or anything, but it's definitely has like that same sort of feel to it. The game is very structured with a level structure like Galaxy is. A lot of the levels are very built on like gimmicks or whatever, but they're good gimmicks. They're not like, oh, I have to do this or whatever. Sometimes in every level, Astro would get like a animal friend that could help him. So I think in the first level, you get like this octopus that inflates you. So it's like kind of like a pea balloon or whatever. And that's like a lot of fun. Some other levels, you get like a Cloud Mario sort of power up where if you press the trigger, you can make a platform underneath you. And I'm like surprised more platformers haven't like ripped off the Cloud Mario because that's such a fun power up. And they do cool things with it too. So sometimes the power up does come back, but you use it in a different way. So with that Cloud Mario power up, sometimes you could just make a normal ass platform, but other times you could suck up honey and then you can make a bouncy platform. And then in another level, you get an ice platform. It kind of makes like this like ramp. So you could do it in midair and then like skate off it and get more airtime. And I think that's really neat. And a lot of the power ups do end up doing that. Like they introduce them and then do something new with it, which I really like. Some of them do feel a bit overused. Like you get like a chicken that kind of acts like, in Mario Sunshine when Flood does his little like big air like rocket thing. It's basically that, but they use that power up a lot and you can't really do much with it. It's just kind of like a fun movement tool, so it's whatever. But yeah, I think the level design is just really good. I think there's like two types of platformers or platformer fans, where some people like the more open world sandboxy platformers with a really complex move set. So it's like, easy to pick up but hard to master. So like Penny's Big Breakaway, something like that, where, I think the level design of that game was good, but it wasn't like the main driving force of why I like playing that game. It was more because Penny was fun to control. This game's kind of like the opposite way, where Astro Bot has a very simple move set. Like he could jump, he could hover, and he could punch, and that's about it. And the creativity mostly comes from the level design and just like what gimmicks they put in each level. And that kind of feels more Mario-esque in a way, because Mario kind of works in both ways. In Odyssey and Sunshine, his moveset is a lot more complex, but in something like Galaxy, they kind of nerf his moveset a bit sort of to fit like that more creative level design aspect. So I think Astro Bot goes for more of that angle, and I think it works out really, really well. I think every level is super fun to go through. Every level just feels so creative. Like none of them feel lazy at all. Like everything felt like they had an idea and they wanted to make it. And that's why I love Galaxy so much, because I felt like every star or every major galaxy in Mario Galaxy felt like, yeah, we could do something cool with this like concept or level, right? And I think that's why Astro Bot really excels at. I feel like the only filler levels are sort of like those little levels, like the Retro Rampage or whatever, and those are whatever. Like, those are more just to like get some more playtime, I guess. But all the major levels are super great. Like, I love every single one of them. Collecting all the little Astrobots is a ton of fun because you see all the cute little references. You get like more unlocks with the puzzle pieces. You could get like more costumes, and you can unlock the gacha machine to get props for your little Astrobots, so they could do like cool, even more fun little references related to that, Astrobot you got. Just overall, it's just a ton of fun. I absolutely love it. I was just having a great time overall. Just super good game. I don't know where I'm going to put this in my game of the year thing. Probably, yeah. I don't know. I was debating even with number 1 or 2. Like, it's either between this or Final Fantasy. Like, I love both of them so much. They just have a lot of joy to them. Like, you could tell whoever made this game, like Team Asobi, they absolutely had a great time making this game, and it only took 3 years to make. We should probably be learning from them to make. You can make these great 9 out of 10 games in like little time if you just don't have to like spend millions. All these years making like millions of dollars making like one blade of grass look good, right? You could just make a really fun game like this for cheap. Well, it probably still costs a lot of money, but you can make it for cheaper than something like God of War, and you can make it in not like half a console's lifespan, right? So yeah. Overall, Astro Bot is fucking amazing. If you have a PS5, definitely buy it.
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely not gonna buy it at launch. I was gonna wait a little bit longer, but obviously with how many reviews and sort of people praising the game, I was like, all right, I gotta pick it up, obviously, because as me and you are both big 3D platformer guys, and I was like, this is a first party PlayStation 3D platformer that they've released in however many years, and it's getting these kinds of scores and reviews. It's like, okay, yeah, we gotta support this movement. And I definitely did not expect you to actually platinum the game and get everything. Just because I've been busy doing other things in the platforming realm. But Astro Bot, I played the first world, and that's about it, which is like an hour and a half. And honestly, yeah, I could see where people are making the comparisons as like, yeah, this is like the complete Mario Galaxy trilogy, or, just like a really solid 3D platformer. Because within the first world itself, you notice that like they introduce little gimmicks and mechanics, and they really flesh it out, and they don't necessarily hold your hand either. Like they want you to figure out like, hey, if you do the spin on this lily pad, you need to use that to get to another one, etc., etc. And yeah, I'm just having a lot of fun with it, and I cannot wait to talk about it more on the next podcast episode. I'm not sure if I will platinum it myself. It is definitely tempting to get all 300 bots, just because you want to see all of the little PlayStation references and sort of where they pull from the old archives. And yeah, I'm just glad that Team Asobi was able to make this game, but also make it as good as it is, because, this is obviously sparking a lot of interest on Twitter, where people are like, yeah, after playing that little Ape Escape level, I kind of want to play more Ape Escape. And it's like, yeah, maybe bring that back, Sony. Maybe bring that back, PlayStation. There's a reason why you guys have such a rich library of past games, is because those games were good back then, and no reason why you shouldn't be tapping into that today. So.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I do hope Team Asobi isn't just a lock to Astro Bot. Like, if they are, that's fine, because I like this game a lot. Yeah. But it'll be cool to see them do like another Ape Escape, because they're basically Team Japan anyway. They're like fragments of it. So it'd be cool if Sony's like, oh, you could remake Ape Escape if you want, or you could make like all this other cool stuff you used to make. But yeah, hopefully this sparks something in Sony. I'm not too confident over it. We're going to talk about other stuff they've been doing lately, but overall, Astro Bot has been fantastic. I think it's a good length to. I mean, for me to platinum it was like 13 hours it took me, which is about standard for like a 3D platformer. I think that's great. I think the game didn't wear out. It's welcome. Again, I think every level was like, it was meant to be there. It's like, oh, we're going to do this level. We have this idea and we're going to do it. It was like no filler in this game at all. Yeah. So, if you worry about the price tag to the gameplay like time, I honestly think it's worth it. I think it was a ton of fun. But if you want to wait on sale, probably wait on sale. But I highly recommend it at full price. I think it's great. Also, it makes Sony, I'm like, I want more of this, please.
Yeah, buying it now definitely sends Sony a sort of little signal to be like, hey, look, the sales numbers are good right now. Maybe we should have Team Asobi make other 3D platformers, whether it's Astro Bot 2 or whatever the case is. So, yeah. Just really quickly, just want to update you guys on Akimbot, because I do have my full game review out on my main channel. But if you haven't watched that yet, pretty much Akimbot, yeah, still the same old good 3D platformer made by a indie company. It's pretty much Ratchet and Clank made by them. It's not as smooth, not as funny, not as whimsical as the Ratchet and Clank series, but it is very nice to see a indie development team take a crack at that formula, and I think they did it pretty well. For the game only being $20, which I was very surprised by, it's like 8 to 10 hours, which is about the same length as Astro Bot if you don't go for everything. So you are definitely getting a really good deal there. And if you don't have a PS5, it is available on Steam and Xbox Series X/S. So you can play it on there. But yeah, definitely recommend that, especially if you love 3D platformers. And then I've been playing Sly 2 Band of Thieves, because the 20th anniversary is tomorrow, the day that we are recording this. Tomorrow is September 14th. 20 years ago, Sly 2 came out on the PlayStation 2, and it is still one of my favorite games of all time. I am on episode 7 out of 8, so I'm literally close to the end. This game is very, very long. I forgot how long each episode was, because the first like 3 episodes take like an hour or so to complete, and then as you keep moving along, each episode takes like an hour 30 or whatever, just because finding those clue bottles is a bitch. I definitely forgot where a lot of them were, and if I wasn't wearing headphones, I think I would have been stuck for a while, because literally this morning, as I was finding the clue bottles for episode 7, I literally turned up the volume because I didn't want to wear my headset. I was like, I gotta turn up the volume. I gotta like sound whore like where the fuck these clue bottles are. But yeah, definitely have a lot of thoughts on this game. The reason why I am replaying it is because I'm doing a retrospective video, which I will hopefully get out by tomorrow. I definitely still need to do a lot of work on that, but yeah, Sly 2 Band of Thieves. Definitely check it out if you have a PS2. If you have a PS3 and you're willing to spend the extra cash for the collection, go for that. Just because I am playing it on the PS2 for a reason, because I'm like, I haven't played this version of the game in like over 10 years, I want to say. Ever since the PS3 collection came out, I haven't really revisited this version. So going back to it, and yeah, you know, it is still super duper good. You know, the graphics are definitely a little bit crusty, but you know, it is what it is. It's a PS2 era kind of game, but yeah, you know, a lot of fun. Definitely. I don't think we've had a 3D platformer game that really excels at the storytelling that Sly 2 does, which is why it is still one of my favorite games of all time and why I love video games. So, you got any thoughts on that, Damian?
Yeah, like I agree with you. Like, Sly 2 is like very, very good. And I think out of the three like PS2 platformers, you know, Jack, Sly, and Ratchet, I definitely think Sly had the best overall story, just because I felt like I knew what it wanted to be from the beginning and kind of like went for it. You know, Jack had the weird thing from Jack 1 to 2, you know, it's kind of a mess. I mean, Jack 3's plot's like fucking crazy. Like, I don't know what's going on. And Ratchet, like all the PS2 Ratchet games, didn't really even have like overarching plots or anything. They only started doing that in the PS3 Ratchet games.
Yeah.
And even then, I mostly think like, I think Sly is still a bit stronger in that aspect. I guess the only other platformer I think that could rival it in terms of like storytelling is probably Psychonauts, because I think that's a big part of why I like that game a lot as well. But Sly is very good in terms of that regard, and I agree with you. Finding clue bottles is very fucking annoying. So it's not like a Ratchet. Like Ratchet, if you give me Ratchet 1, I basically know where every collectible is by heart because I'm a nerd, so I just remember where they are. But with Sly, I'm always just like I remember one being here, but I don't remember where
exactly.
it is. So I remember that being a pain. Still a great game though.
That was definitely me throughout this entire week. I was like, where the hell are these clue bottles? Especially during episode 4 with the prison. Like, that map was fucking me up because I'm like, bro, traveling between inside the prison, outside of it. I'm like, where the hell are these bottles? But
yeah.
Anyways, one last thing that I did, I watched Twisters in 40X with my good friend Jimmy Mullen. This was the first time we saw it in 40X, doing anything 40X. And if you guys don't know what it is, it's pretty much when the seat moves around, there's like air that gets blown into your ears. Sometimes there's water, you know, like it is a crazy movie theater experience, and one that I would not recommend the first time you see a movie, because it's like, it's so distracting where I'm like, okay, like now I gotta like lock back in after like the chair moves around when like a tornado shows up or whatever. But definitely the ideal way to rewatch it, I will say. They are doing a limited run of this Twisters 40X back in that format. So if you can see it still, try to go see it. But yeah, I think I was sitting next to a mom and a daughter who were seeing it for the first time, and I felt bad for them because I'm like, bro, you know, because the chairs are moving around and like it's a lot more, I'm not going to say talkative, but a lot more of a relaxed movie theater experience, because like once the seat stops moving, everyone's like, you know, like trying to like relock it and like sort of like figure out like what the hell is going on. But yeah, Twisters is still a great movie. I really enjoyed that film. It's definitely one of my favorites of this year, and the 40X experience only enhanced it. So
yeah, I don't know if I told this story before on the podcast. I forget, but I remember when we watched, me and my brother went to watch, I think it was like the first, the My Hero story, right? I don't know if I told it here or if I just told you, but I'm going to say it again anyway. So like I accidentally bought a 40X ticket for one of the My Hero movies. I think it was the first one when they do like the tower heist or whatever the hell. I don't know. I can't remember. But we sat down in our seats, and I thought I just bought, you know, just normal ass tickets. So as soon as it was during the previews, the seats were right starting to move, and I told my brother, I'm like, why is it doing that? I don't know, maybe just be for the thing. And then the first scene when All Might is like fighting some guy and just like explosion everywhere, we were getting like rocked back and forth. I'm like, I think I made a mistake. We were just laughing because like, oh fuck, what did I do? So that was a ton of fun though. I wouldn't recommend it for a first time viewing because I felt like I didn't know what was going on half the time because I was like shaking in my seat, but it was a lot of fun though. I would like to do it again. That was the only time I've done it, but yeah.
40X is a wild ass experience. But yeah, now let's get into the slew of gaming news, mostly PlayStation fucking up. Then they won with Astro Bot, then they fucked up again. So first thing is that Concord is offline. It is not active anymore. They pretty much dropped this randomly on a random, I think, Tuesday afternoon or something like that. They were just like, Concord is dead. We're going to shut it down later this week on September 6th. You know, they did reach a certain amount of players, but obviously it did not hit the marks that they were hoping for. The game has been, quote unquote, in development for 8 years. I say quote unquote just because it hasn't been actively in development for 8 years. I think it was closer to like 4 to 5 years or something like that. But yeah, pretty much if you bought it digitally, you can get a refund. And if you bought it from retailers, they will reach out to you to get a refund. I was a fuckhead and I bought it right when they said that it was going to get shut down. And I bought it from a retailer because I was like, this is now a piece of gaming history. This is never going to get printed again, probably. So yeah, I bought it for $40. It's pretty much just a coaster at this point.
Yeah.
But people are buying it online for like $100 resale because it is a collector's item at this point. So yeah, now I own it just because I am that guy. But yeah, I mean, Concord getting shut down, I think, is very surprising, whether you liked the game or didn't. I thought that they were going to at least try to support it for the amount of time and money that they blew into it. And then they were just like, nope, we're just going to pull the plug now. They didn't even give it a full month to really figure out if it had a community or whatever. Because, I did see a few select people on Twitter being like, damn, like I met so many people on this game, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, yeah, that sucks for you. And I hope that you guys find a different game to enjoy and have fun with. But this just didn't hit the mark. And yeah, sadly, PlayStation pulled the plug, probably very likely way too soon.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy with this game because, yeah, like you, I expected the game to at least last until they had all their content they've already had out, since they've already had a roadmap. So, we're going to release this on this date or this on this date. And then they would shut it down. Like, that's usually what these live service games do. But the player numbers were so fucking low. Like, on Steam, they were, like, drastically low. Like, me and my brother have been obsessed with this game for the last few weeks, just like how badly he was doing. And I'm just like, oh my God. And when it got shut down 2 weeks after release, we just couldn't believe it. It was like, oh my fucking God. It probably has to be the worst launching AAA game in terms of like player engagement. Like even other games like Redfall or Suicide Squad, those games also did bad. But at least they launched with like 1,000 something players on Steam. Like, this game launched with like 600 peak, and that's it. That was as many as it ever got, at least on Steam. On PlayStation, all the people were saying it probably didn't do much better because on the top selling, it wasn't even like top like 50. Like, it was doing so bad. So them to shut it off this quickly had to mean it was dire. Like, it must have made like no fucking money if that was the case. And I don't know. Like, I think it just comes down to just a lot of things where, they were selling a hero shooter for $60 or $40 rather.
Yeah.
And, I feel like we're saying like Helldivers, that makes a bit more sense because Helldivers is a bit more unique in its gameplay. Concord's like, you could just play Overwatch for free. You don't have to pay money for it. And also like, the character designs didn't appeal to a lot of people and the gameplay was just kind of okay. Like, again, I played the open beta for like 40 minutes. And I'm like, okay, I think I saw everything I had to see. Like, nothing about the game really stood out. Like, it still was a well-made game technically. Like, it looked nice, it played fine, everything about it was fine. It just didn't stand out at all, and like just no one gave a shit about the game. And I just never seen this before. Not even just casual people just decided to buy it for the sake of it. Like, just no one cared. So I hope they're able to turn it around, maybe make it free, even though like I still don't even think free to play would work. Like, people just don't like the game from like a core standpoint. Like, they would have to like totally change the art style or make the gameplay more unique or something, because like it's dire. Like, I honestly don't really see the game coming back. Like, they might try to do something, but I think at the end it's probably just gonna get canceled and Firewalk, the developers are probably just gonna get canned, which is very sad because obviously you don't want people getting laid off or whatever. But I don't think I've ever seen a failure of this scale on a AAA like thing before. This was a first party Sony thing, and it failing this badly is like insane to me. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, I think this is just writing on the wall for PlayStation, where they've been complacent for the past, I would say 5, maybe even 10 years at this point, where they really haven't had any like really strong new games that they've shown, if they weren't sequels or whatever, where people were really super duper excited for. Like, this game's first impression left such a bad taste in everyone's mouth. It was literally the first 10 minutes of the first day to play that we haven't gotten in a while, and people were like, just move on. We don't want to see this game. It's another hero shooter. We don't care. And obviously they tried to keep pushing for it. They've had streamers even play it leading up to the game's release. I remember seeing Shroud and Tarek play it, and I'm like, these guys playing it, they definitely got a bag for it. And obviously that wasn't enough, because like you said, not even 1,000 people on Steam, and it couldn't have been better on PlayStation. So yeah, and obviously price wasn't even a factor. If the game was free to play, like you said, I don't even think that would have saved it, just because it was just not getting anyone invested into it. There was literally nothing that they could have done other than maybe talk about the game sooner, maybe have people actually play test it or whatever. I obviously don't know everything behind the scenes, but it feels like Sony kind of just sent this game out to die. Like they were like, just get this out of here and then see what happens. And they knew that it was going to fail to a certain extent if they were so comfortable with pulling the plug this early.
Yeah, I kind of just hope this, it's sort of like just, Concord release and then Astro Bot release, and you just see the total difference in like people's perceptions of both these games. One being like this, more generic live service game that we've seen time and time again. So Astro Bot that's like very creative. We haven't seen platformers of this scale in a while. It just feels very fresh from Sony, right? And I feel like hopefully to get the message from this, where it's like, they should be investing more money into games like Astro Bot. Even if they don't make as much money as something like God of War or whatever, you can still get them out more frequently. And, people love them, like just looking from the Metacritic scores and stuff. Concord, I feel it was just always destined to die. Like as soon as it got shown at that state of play for like 10 minutes to try and make people invested, people just did not care. They showed one trailer for Astro Bot and everyone lost their mind. So
yes, that same state of play.
Yeah, it's the same state of play that happened. So I'm really hoping Sony just kind of stops with a live service push. It really hurt them this generation overall because, we haven't really gotten a huge amount of games. And most of it has been coming from Insomniac, and like that's kind of about it. Obviously we got some other games, mostly from third parties that have been really carrying the PS5 right now in terms of software. And, because all these companies are trying to do these live service things. I mean, Naughty Dog, I felt like it really got fucked because they were trying to make factions, to cancel it, and now they have to make something else right now, obviously Concord as well, and that game from Fair Games that they're making, like some Payday thing. I don't even remember what they're making. I'm really hoping Sony kind of just stops with this. Like, they should just stick with Helldivers, put a bunch of money into Helldivers, make it as good as it be, and that's your live service game. Again, it never makes sense to me why these companies want multiple live service games. Like, people can only invest so much time into each of them, right? Like, if you want people to be invested in them, just make one really good one and then stick with that. And they stuck with Helldivers. They made a great game, and then they're just like, nah, we gotta make more. I mean, it doesn't work like that. So, I don't know. It's always been weird, and I hope this live service push stops and it just continue to make the good, single player games. Even if they are like the third person movie games, as everyone says, at least they're better than this. So, I'd rather take those than that. So, yeah, this generation has really been hurting just because they've been really trying to, chase that trend of live service stuff. And it just obviously isn't working. So please, Sony, stop.
Yeah, like imagine if they released the Spider-Man live service game or that Last of Us one. It's like, okay, yeah, they actually would have had over 1,000 players at least. That actually would have got people invested into it because people love those franchises. They love those characters and they want to play that within a multiplayer space in some way, shape, or form. With Concord, it's like, all right, this is like Overwatch but worse, and like people have no real connection with these characters in this world. So it was definitely going to be a much harder sell from the jump, and it really bogs the mind as to why they kept this going as opposed to the other live service projects that they pretty much canned all of them.
Yeah, it's just been super dire for Sony. And I mean, it doesn't really get much better with our next step. So I guess we could just hop into that. So we got the PS5 Pro technical presentation. So, there was a lot of news about this, about a certain thing. But I do want to talk about, before we talk about the elephant in the room, I do want to talk about what it's actually improving. So it has what he calls the big three.
The big three.
The big three. So it got a larger GPU, has advanced ray tracing, and AI-driven upscaling. So before anyone freaks out about the AI-driven upscaling, because I saw some people that are not saying this correctly, a lot of graphics cards also use this. It's just DLSS. Like it makes like frame generation, like, so you could run at your resolution, but it kind of like makes everything else blurrier on the side or whatever. So like whatever you're looking at looks good, and things you aren't looking at don't look good. Like that's like really simple. Like there's more technical stuff. I'm not like a pro at this stuff, but it's basically what PC's been doing for a while now. So don't, like, I saw people freaking out like, oh, it's like AI generation or whatever. It's not. It's like it just helps you run games better. Basically, that's all you gotta know. Either way, all these things are good, right? Like, oh, that's good. But from the side to side comparisons, a lot of the time it doesn't really like make a whole lot of difference. Like, I think the biggest one is probably like Last of Us Part 2, because yeah, you could run it at 60 frames and it still looks good. That's pretty nice. But even then, the game still looks good at 60 frames. Like a lot of these games still look pretty good on performance mode. You just lose like the tiniest bit of detail that doesn't even fucking matter. Like ray tracing, I honestly couldn't give less of a shit about. Like ray tracing has always been something I'm just like, man, I don't give a shit about ray tracing. Like I've always been, I want games to look good, but it's also like, I don't want to sacrifice a bunch of frames for it. And, ray tracing is always such a big thing that these companies want to do. And I just feel like, man, it doesn't really matter. That should be like the finishing touch on something. It shouldn't be a thing you're really focusing on. And, to use Spider-Man 2 as an example, I'm like, you're going like 10 billion miles an hour. Why does it matter? Like most of the time when you're fighting too, just like there's a bunch of people on screen and stuff. And like, I'm not really looking at a puddle, right? So
yeah.
I think Ratchet's probably the best example. I think Ratchet's still one of the best looking games on PS5. It's not saying a lot because it's not too many to begin with, but like Ratchet looks great. Like Ratchet's still one of my like favorite looking PS5 games. And they use that a lot in these examples. And yeah, it looks really good. Obviously running at 60 frames and having it in fidelity mode, basically. Yeah, it looks good. But is it worth the price? Probably not. And it also shows how dire of a state Sony is in terms of games right now, because a lot of these games are fucking PS4 games. They were showing Ghost of Tsushima and Last of Us. Last of Us Part 2 is a PS4 game, like, I don't know. Like, the only two PS5 games they showed were Spider-Man and Ratchet, I believe. Like, I think they showed Dark Souls. I can't remember. Or Demon Souls, sorry. But yeah, either way, it's like a lot of these games were like PS4 games. Even Ratchet is like 3 years old at this point, right? Like, a lot of these games are like older, and like, is this upgrade necessary? Even before this announcement, I'm like, we don't need a PS5 Pro. Like, we need more games. Like, we don't need this at the moment. Like, at least with the PS4, when the PS4 Pro came out, even though I never got it, I'm like, I could see a reason for this, because at least they were pumping out a lot of games at that point. A lot of these games were, a lot of the games on the PS4 were kind of running a little shittily. Like okay, a Pro would be nice to have. For this, I feel like we didn't even reach the maximum potential on PS5 games to begin with, and like we're already making a Pro. Like we're halfway through this console's lifespan. I'm like, this doesn't feel deserved at all. I feel like we barely got to even use the PS5. But yeah, anything you want to say about this? I mean, you could bring up the other elephant in the room if you want.
Yeah. I mean, I'll get to the $700 price tag later, but.
Yeah, about the other thing.
Oh, what, the disk drive? I mean, of course, there's multiple elephants in the room that we got to talk about. But yeah, the PS5 Pro, when it comes to my opinion on like pro console models, which we only started doing last generation, I always thought it was a waste of time. Even with like the PS4 Pro, I didn't even know what it did until like I made my video like earlier this week, and I was like, what did the PS4 Pro do? And it just made the games look better with 4K resolution and maybe more stable frame rate or whatever. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you know what? That's fine. Me personally, at the time, I think I just bought my PS4. So I was like, I don't really see a reason to upgrade to a Pro model. And the same thing with the PS5 Pro. Me and you, we both got it at launch. And even then, seeing this PS5 Pro, it's like, okay, yeah, the games will look better. They will run better. But it's like they didn't necessarily earn us wanting to get a PS5 Pro, if that makes any sense, right? And when it comes to the games themselves and like how they look and perform, I'm like, okay, yeah, like what they showed in this presentation is valid. Like the games do look better. I'm not gonna lie, they do look better, but it's on the such like smallest things, like in the background, where it's like you're not even gonna notice or care, and that's where the sort of diminishing returns gets into question, where people are like, do graphics really even matter at this point? And I'm like, no, they don't. They should really be focusing on a stable 60 frames per second frame rate, and obviously certain games that they talked about could go above that. And I'm like, okay, yeah, like that's cool, but until we get like a full list of like which games can go beyond that 60 frames per second, then like I don't really care, because it's like the PS5 Pro just seems like such a waste of money, and I feel like a lot of people really agree with that. And I'm in the same camp as you, Damian, where it's like, okay, yeah, if it's between fidelity and performance, I'm going with performance every day of the week. That's how I was with Spider-Man Miles Morales at launch, and that's how I am with whatever games come out today. Because it's like, what's the point of like the prettier, shinier graphics if it's running at 30 frames? That makes no sense to me. And I feel like gamers that are like that probably don't game on PC, or maybe that's just what they value more. They just value the prettier graphics, and you know what? That's fine. But I think the frame rate should 100% be something that you should be prioritizing when you are playing games, especially in 2024. But yeah, November 7th, it is coming out the same day as like Mario and Luigi or something, and I'm like, all right, good luck, have fun with that. But yeah, PS5 Pro, I guess I'll address the first elephant in the room, which is the one that you were pointing out earlier, which is the no disk drive. No disk drive in the console bundle when you buy it, and it's $700, and that is absolutely ridiculous. I think if it came with the disk drive for $700, I think it would have been a little bit more reasonable, but even then, $700 for another PS5 version of a console when they kind of just came out with the Slim is kind of ridiculous. And I don't see a reason for people to buy this, even if they don't have a PS5, because it's like you're dropping close to $800 to $900 if you get the disc drive and everything. And even if you're arguing where it's like, oh, I want to play GTA 6, I like the prettiest and highest graphics, and it's like, all right, I guess, but like you're dropping like $1,000 at that point, $1,000 for a GTA 6 machine. You gotta like be a little more reasonable with yourself, where it's like you could get a refurbished PS5 from like Sony directly, and I think it's like $400, and you can get GTA 6 for like $70 or whatever, and then boom, bam, done. You spend like $700, pretty much less than what the Pro would be asking for. So
yeah, it's just like, I definitely feel like this thing was made for GTA 6. Like, I feel like that's the only reason this thing exists at this point. It's like, oh yeah, like GTA 6 is probably gonna be a really demanding game, and people are really gonna want it to play it at like the highest graphics and frame rates, and I feel like this system was made just for it at this point. But again, I really don't see any reason why anyone would buy this right now. There was rumors going around before this came out. I was like, oh, the PS5 Pro could play every PlayStation generation, like backwards compatible. That would have been cool. I still wouldn't spend $700 on it, but at least I would give it a reason to exist.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's just no features about this thing that makes me like want to jump at it. Like, yeah, I need this right now. Like, even if this was a PS6, like $700 would be like a shit ton of money, and I would be like, oh man, maybe I won't get that at launch, just because it's a lot of money. But right now, like, it's just a mid upgrade for for the PS5. Like, I'd rather use this money for the Switch 2, at least I know that's gonna have like a bunch of games at release, right? So, and this is confirmed someone. I like the PS5. Like, I think hardware wise, like it's very strong. I've been using it a lot. Like, I like the interface. I like everything about the PS5. It's just like, I think Sony first party stuff has been really lacking this generation because there hasn't been a lot of it, right? Because technically, like God of War and Horizon Forbidden West were PS4 games also, because they were both PS4 and PS5, so they technically weren't like full PS5 games. And if we weren't getting more technical about it, yet Ratchet isn't even a full PS5 game anymore because it's on PC. But I still count it as mostly a PS5 game anyway. But yeah, it's really just been like a Sony been carrying the shit out of this console. So we're really gonna need some more games before this feels really justified. I want Ghost of Tsushima 2 or whatever Naughty Dog's cooking up, to make this thing feel like, yeah, now this thing feels worth it, right? But even then, I still won't fucking buy it. So
yeah.
But yeah, and then you have other people like, Jeff Keighley was like trying to defend it. He was just like, here's all the prices with inflation. I'm like, fucking no one's looking at it.
I was like, this guy's dick munching so hard. This is actually crazy, because even within the community notes, it's like, okay, well, this doesn't really count because it doesn't have the disk drive, which is like a big factor. Say what you will about, gaming these days where, some people are going fully digital or whatever. And you know what? That is completely fair, completely valid. But the disk drive helps so much where you are able to get games at a cheaper price that aren't adjusted to the PlayStation Marketplace sort of price point, right? And you're able to also play your PS4 games. You're also able to play movies with Blu-ray, 4K, all that other stuff. A disk drive is pretty important, and it really gives the player and the consumer power to get the games where they want to. Because if we were at the whim of just PlayStation Marketplace to buy all their games, we would be broke, because we would be buying every single game at full price alongside tax or whatever the case is. And yeah, it would just make buying games just not that much fun, and you don't really own the games either, because I think there was a tweet of someone who reviewed Concord early, and
they took it out.
They had a digital copy, and that got yoinked right from their account, and I'm like, that is absolutely crazy. So yeah, I feel like people that are wishing for a full digital gaming ecosystem, I don't think they necessarily see the 100% benefits that come with a physical sort of alternative to that.
Yeah, it's always kind of complicated, because I feel like Steam does a pretty okay job, because even if they do blacklist a game or it's like gone forever, like if it's in your library, I believe you can still just play it. Like I remember when Deadpool got delisted, you were still able to play it if you own it. Like, with Concord, it's just like, nah, that shit's gone. I know it was an online multiplayer game, but, you should still be able to at least launch the error screen, right? So it being yoinked from your account feels very violating because it's like you owned that and now you don't. So that feels kind of weird. So I think it depends on like who's the one in charge of the digital stuff. Like I think Steam for the most part has been pretty good. And I guess that's why I'm kind of comfortable with digital library just because I had Steam for so long and like I have like a bajillion games on there, so I don't feel like I'm ever in danger of losing them, hopefully. But with PlayStation, it's just like you never know, right? I mean, I still own most of my PlayStation games digitally because I'm fucking lazy, but like I know that might bite me in the ass, but I do it anyway because I'm like, well, I'm lazy. For Switch, I buy everything physical just because for that I'm like I don't trust Nintendo. I'm just gonna buy this shit physical, but yeah, we talked about the whole physical digital debate, but now that's coming to a head where it's like, oh, like we might actually see consoles not even have disk drives anymore, and it's like an optional thing. I feel like consoles should always have a disk drive. I feel like that shouldn't be like a thing. Like consoles should just always have it, right? So this is like a pretty terrible precedent to have, just to be like, okay, no, like Sony might not just even have, like PS6 might just be full digital at this point, right? So I'm pretty sure that's a feature that people don't want. People want a choice to be able to pick, if they have it or not. So and of course $700 is way too much fucking money. I mean, it really does. Sony always does this when they feel like they're on top. When the PS3 came out, that shit was $600, and like that was a shit ton of money back in the day. And they were doing that because the PS2, they were riding high on the PS2. And same thing, but now they were riding high on the PS4 because that console's so like crazy. And they basically are on the top. I know Nintendo, with the Switch, but Microsoft has been eating shit, and Sony's just like, oh, I could do whatever. I'm the market leader, so fuck you. And you would just see them being like super assholes lately. The $70 games, they raised the DualSense by $5 because fuck you, I guess. And now the $700 consoles. So hopefully like Xbox will get their shit together because having competition is very good, and if you don't have any competition, we see shit like this where companies just do whatever the fuck they want because it's like, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna buy an Xbox? No, you're not. So I don't know. It's pretty bad.
It is absolutely crazy to see Sony just swing their big dick around in the games industry and be like, it's $700 for the PS5 Pro. If you want it, suck it. And then it's like, okay, $80 for a disk drive as well. It's the same disk drive that they launched when the PS5 Slim came out, and now you're seeing it at certain retailers that the disk drive is selling out because people are preparing to get a PS5 Pro when that console does launch. So what's going to happen when all of the disk drives are just sold out everywhere? Are people just screwed who have a physical library like me, where that's like, okay, I want to upgrade to the PS5 Pro, but I actually can't play most of my games because I have them all on disc and there's no disc drives available? That becomes another issue, obviously, with scalpers and sort of scarcity and everything like that, it will always be a threat. But when it comes to something like a disk drive that I feel like, should be readily available, especially if you're charging $80 for it and it isn't coming with your brand new shiny console, it should be something that Sony is going to fix, hopefully within the coming months. Who knows? I wouldn't be surprised when the PS5 Pro launches and disk drives are just sold out everywhere, because people that have a PS5 Pro now are probably going to want a disc drive just to have it, just to know that they can actually, put a disc in there, put an old PS5 game, put a new PS4 game or whatever. I'm mixing up my PS5 and PS4 now, but you know what I'm saying? Just having that choice to insert a disc into the console to use it when they want to.
Yeah, it's been bad. the PS5 Pro feels like it's for no one besides people that just like to buy the new expensive like tech stuff, and that's about it, right? Like I feel like like some tech bro would buy this to be like, look how cool it is, and then it just gathers dust for like forever.
I mean that's what the PS5 has been doing lately. I ain't going front, but
yeah. Again, the PS5.
We still got it because, it does have some very exclusive games that come out every now and then, like Spider-Man 2, Ratchet and Clank, etc., which are all Insomniac properties.
Yep, that's what I'm saying. Insomniac's been really carrying this console, so I'm really going to need those other studios to, like, do something. I know technically Santa Monica and Guerrilla, like, they did release 2 games, but again, they were also on PS4, so it's really hard to count them technically because they are PS4 games still, but regardless, like this generation has been really weird, and it kind of makes me wonder if generations are going to be as important as they have been in the past. Like if we're just going to keep, if they just feel more like PC upgrades rather than like a full ass console gen. Because, you know, like you said, technology has been plateauing in terms of like gaming, right? Like I don't know if we're ever, well, we might one day, but I don't know if we're ever going to get like a game that is legit, looks like a CGI movie, but you could play it, right? Like I don't know if we're ever going to get to that point technically. I don't know. But, you know, I feel like as of right now, we kind of reached the peak of what we could do with games in terms of like how good it could look to a normal consumer. Because, yeah, they could add ray tracing, they could add extra shaders or whatever. But for the most people, it's going to be like, who cares, right? So, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So now let's talk about Microsoft. They laid off 3% of their gaming workforce, about 650 employees, in additional post-Activision-Blizzard cuts. So, yeah, I mean, it looks like that this buyout was a lot worse than I think people had expected. Obviously, I think that there were those outliers that were obviously saying this before the deal officially went through, where it's like, do not let Microsoft buy Activision Blizzard. This is going to be bad. It's going to be almost a monopoly kind of thing. And, you know, at the time where it was like, okay, you know, they had Bobby Kotick, who's a fucking very problematic figure at Blizzard Activision. And, you know, sort of having Microsoft come in and sort of save them, if you will, seemed like a fair idea for most, you know, I guess like general people like you and I, Damian. And now it's like, okay, yeah, no, this shit was actually like fucking terrible. This was a terrible ass idea because Microsoft keep cutting people from Activision Blizzard. I feel like they've done it multiple times this year. And yeah, I mean, I think it's just their way to try to make some sort of profits or whatever the case is, because I feel like the higher ups at Microsoft and Xbox could definitely cut their checks a little bit to sort of save these people. But, you know, if, you know, I guess I'm playing devil's advocate here, which is fucking bad for like $1 trillion company. But, you know, if they don't have a role for them anymore, then I guess, you know, laying them off is like the last resort you should do. But obviously allocating them to other studios and other parts of the company is definitely best case scenario if you genuinely don't need them anymore for whatever they're working on.
Yeah, it's just like, there's just been bleeding employees for the last like year or two, and I just wonder how much more they could lose. I mean, you know, we're already seeing Xbox step down as like a major force in gaming lately. You know, I think whatever they want to transition into is definitely not going to be a home console anymore. Like they might have one more in them because, you know, the way hardware development works, probably have another Xbox on the way. But I feel like after that, they might transition more into like a maybe like a bigger third party studio or something. Like maybe it's like, oh, we have like a smaller thing on the side. You can buy Xbox games on PS5, on Switch. Like that's probably what they're going to end up doing. I've been hearing things they want to do like a portable console as well. So something like a Steam Deck or a Switch. So maybe that could be something they look forward to. Like I don't know. Either way, I think Microsoft has been very cooked recently and they don't know what they're doing. And I don't know why. Like I feel like they have, you know, out of all the three companies of Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony, like Microsoft has the most money. Like they could invest more into the gaming divisions to make it more successful, because, you know, gaming makes a lot of money, but for some reason Microsoft is just very like just doesn't want to do it. Like I think they just see it as a lost cause at this point. Like, you know, the Xbox brand really hasn't been that popular since the 360 days. Like that was probably the last time they were on top. You know, they lost like 2 generations in a row basically. Like the Xbox One did pretty bad, and the Xbox Series X is losing super hard to the PS5 like right now. So you know, I just don't think they see a lot of reason to keep going with this, and the Activision Blizzard deal probably did not go the way they wanted to, just because it was too many things they acquired and they just had to cut down so much shit because of how expensive it was. You know, which sucks. So I don't know, like Microsoft has been just eating shit. Even like their big games like Indiana Jones are going to PS5 in like a few months, you know, like they're going to show a Halo game and that's just about launched on both PS5 and Xbox. It's going to be insane. So yeah, it hasn't been great for Microsoft, like we've been saying for the last like few months of this podcast. So and like I said, it's also bad because it just means Sony could do what they want. Like I said, like Sony could just drive up prices of games. They could drive up prices of consoles because they have no competition anymore. They can just do whatever, which is why competition is always very, very important, like I said. So yeah, hopefully Microsoft could get it together and hopefully they could get like a W at some point, because I feel like they've just been taking L after L after L lately, and it just hasn't been the great.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I feel like we hit rock bottom when they let go Tango Gameworks and Arcade Austin, but now it's like they're still letting go people. They're still bleeding out. And, going on the point of like just Sony being able to do whatever the hell they want, I might be talking out of my ass here, but I feel like I remember reading somewhere that they were the first ones to implement the $70 price tag for games. When it came to their PlayStation Studios titles, because they were like, we're like trying to provide, the best games ever or whatever the hell. And then it was like, we'll charge $10 extra to the consumer. And obviously that sort of opened the floodgates for everyone else to do that if they felt that their game was needed. Sports games every single year, they're $70 now because they know that people will still buy them, even though, it's the same or similar product year after year. I can say it's the exact same, but, I'm not a sports games guy, but I know that they don't necessarily change a whole bunch between 2K22 to 2K23, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, hopefully Microsoft is able to actually figure out what they want to do within the future of gaming. I hope that they stay as one of the big three and they continue to make consoles and everything like that. But it seems like with the direction that they're going in, this first step being with the whole Indiana Jones being pre-announced to come to PS5 in the spring before the game even comes out, just says to me, and I think the rest of the gaming community, that they're like, okay, we're not really going to try to sell Xboxes anymore, which sucks because I feel like, like you said, they definitely have the most money out of the big three that they can actually, allocate more stuff to the Xbox division. But it seems like they see it as a sinking ship at this point.
Yeah, so I feel like the Activision-Blizzard deal was like sort of the last Hail Mary. And since they didn't see immediate results, they're like, okay, time to like wipe everything out, which is, one, doesn't make sense because, you need time to develop games. But two, yeah, I don't know. It just seems like a really big mistake that all this even happened. So, we thought it was going to be the opposite way around where Microsoft would have the monopoly, but it ended up doing a Uno reverse card and being like, oh no, they're the ones that got fucked and Sony's got a monopoly. So, whoa, very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is just crazy because I feel like maybe if Starfield did a little bit better, maybe if Starfield wasn't like a broken piece of shit when it came out, right? And people actually like praised it as like the next Skyrim game or whatever the case was, because I feel like Microsoft was banking on that a lot. And then it came out and no one really cared. And then it got like one game awards nomination. And then it was like, okay, yeah, we're kind of cooked. So
yeah, Starfield was definitely didn't help. It was just kind of an okay game. Like I enjoyed it, but yeah, it definitely wasn't like memorable like to a lot of people. And it really hurt Microsoft. I think they were really hoping that would be a console seller. And then it ended up not being that. So oops. All right. So next we got some Spider-Man stuff. So what's been going on with Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse? So there's been a lot of rumors. I believe, I forgot what Twitter account said it. It was like some of those, that clickbaity one that said, Sony has scrapped most of Beyond the Spider-Verse and it won't come out till 2027. And then a lot of the people that actually worked on the movie, like, obviously Chris Miller and stuff, was just like, no, that's not true. So I think at first I saw it was the composer that said like, nah, don't believe everything you read on the internet. And then more people start coming out from the movie production and be like, no, that's not true at all. So that's good. So it didn't get scrapped. But, a lot of people are still concerned about this movie. I mean, this whole trilogy has seemed like it's been like kind of a mess in terms of like production. I love both movies. I thought both movies were fantastic. I love them a lot. They were great. But, we've been hearing about a lot of the crunch, the production hell these movies have been in, the animators being paid like shit or like not treated well. There's still been a lot of concerns, and honestly, the movie still might not come out till 2027, like they said, and that's probably where the rumor started from. Like maybe someone heard that it won't come out till 2027, and like, that must mean it got scrapped or something. And then they just kind of ran with it. But yeah, it's been kind of a mess. These movies, like even Into the Spider-Verse was a fucking mess. Like I've never seen a company patch a movie before until I saw Into the Spider-Verse, or I'm sorry, Across the Spider-Verse. So yeah, this series has been kind of a mess, even though the movies are great. Like I wish the production was a bit smoother.
Yeah, like these are both fantastic movies in and of themselves, but they're also fantastic Spider-Man movies, which I think is just as important. And, for these rumors to randomly just start sparking around where it's like, stuff's getting scrapped or whatever. And, at first I was like, all right, that's kind of interesting. I mean, personally, I could wait for as long as I need to. I'll be fucking 40 and watch this movie in theaters and still be excited for it. I don't care. As long as when it comes out that it sticks to landing, that's like the most important part, because this is the end of this trilogy of this Miles Morales storyline. storyline for this Spider-Man. And, I just wish that whatever this conclusion that Chris Miller and Phil Lord or whatever, like they are able to execute on what their plan is, and it sticks a landing. That's all I could really hope for, So whatever sort of timeline that this movie's in, whether it takes 2026, 2027, 2028, for all I care, I can wait. I don't need this movie right away. We waited 5 years between Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse. I think that was fine. Like obviously like that is like a long time to wait for something, but obviously that wait was goddamn worth it because I saw that movie multiple times in theaters and enjoyed myself every single time. And, for this movie, if we have to wait a additional 5 years, 6, 7 years, even just to make sure that it is perfect and these animators aren't fucked and they aren't screwed and they're paid well and they can actually live their lives outside of the work, then I'm fine with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I basically feel the same way. Like, them saying that this movie was going to come out a year after Across the Spider-Verse, I just did not
super
believe
ballsy.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know where they thought that was going to happen. Even when all the animators, we finished this movie off the skin of our teeth. Like, Across the Spider-Verse, like, barely came out. And you could tell because, they had to, like, patch things and, like, do other stuff as the movie was coming out. So them saying it was going to come out a year after the Across the Spider-Verse was very, like, super ambitious and obviously wasn't going to happen. So, like you said, they could take as long as they want. I mean, I could wait another 5 years. Like, like I could wait as long as I waited for Across the Spider-Verse. Like, it's fine. Most movie sequels take that long to make anyway, so it's not like I'm like dying for it or anything. Mm-hmm. I want to see what happens just as much as everyone else, but I also want the animators not to be killing themselves as they make this movie. You know what I'm saying? So hopefully hopefully the movie comes out, it's all good. We get a satisfying conclusion, because I'm sure if the movie doesn't end well, like people are going to be mad. I mean, I'll probably be a bit peeved as well, but let them cook, right? I'm going to let them cook. I want to see what they're cooking up, and I'm sure it's going to be great, just like the other two movies were in general. So I'm not panicking just yet. If all the people working on the thing right now say like, nah, it's going pretty okay at the moment, I'll believe them. And when it comes out, and hopefully it'll be just as good as Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse, and we can have probably one of the best Spider-Man trilogies out there. So yeah.
Yeah. All right, so speaking of Spider-Man, we got a report about Destin Daniel Cretton. Hopefully I pronounced his name right. He is the director of Shang-Chi. He is in talks to direct Spider-Man 4 with Tom Holland. So, yeah, he was a big frontrunner for it for a while now. I feel like people were throwing his name around a lot just because of his work within Shang-Chi and those action sequences and sort of how he shot that film. After this report came out, people on Twitter were, posting clips on the fight scenes, and I definitely have to rewatch that movie because I'm like, okay, yeah, like they definitely were cooking, and I've only seen it once in theaters, and I think I missed like the first like 5 to 10 minutes of it, which was that beginning fight scene between the mom and dad or whatever. So I was like, okay, yeah, definitely a good choice of directors. I feel like if that they are going to do a street level Spider-Man 4, that it can work. There are rumors now that they might tie into Venom next, which we will talk about. But it is definitely a weird way that they're trying to go about this. It might tie into the new Avengers films with Doomsday and Secret Wars and everything like that. But obviously, we don't know jack shit. And there are talks about the other two Spider-Man coming back, Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire. But, all I want is a simple ass fucking Spider-Man movie that is, grounded, that is, going to able to utilize the ending that John Watts gave them and sort of run with it. Because I feel like that was like the perfect way to show that Spider-Man is more than just Peter Parker, that, he had to sacrifice legit everything within his life to make it better for MJ, Ned, etc.
Yeah, I mean, I really like Shang-Chi. Like, I think the fight scenes were really good in that movie. And I feel like, you could do a good street level thing with that. Got Daredevil and Spider-Man fighting Kingpin, right? I feel like this director would make a really good, version of that. But, I've been hearing over and over that, like that was canceled by Disney and they're going to be doing something else now. So, obviously the multiverse stuff is the big thing. Like they want to do another one because, No Way Home made so much money because of that. They're like, oh, we got to do it again, right? Even though like it kind of misses the point of why that movie was special to begin with. Because, it should be a one-time thing that happened. And, connecting it to the Venom movies also feels like, why would you do that? Or like, if they just take the symbiote like that happened at the end of like No Way Home and then like do something with the black suit, like that'd be fine. Just like, I just want it to be like, yeah, like you said, like a simple Spider-Man story, like something we know, like, that street level stuff is probably the thing most people want at this point. But if they want to do a black suit story or whatever, that'll be fine as well. I just don't want no multiverse stuff in this. Like we already did that, and I liked it a lot. Like, I know some people hate No Way Home or whatever. I really enjoyed that movie, but we had our fill with that, even with other MCU projects. Like I just want Spider-Man to do his Spider-Man stuff, and that's all I really want at the moment. So hopefully they could deliver that, because I really, like I said, I like Shang-Chi quite a bit, and I think the fight scenes in that movie would go hard for a Spider-Man movie. I think that would be really neat. So if he could do something like that, that would be really cool. But again, we have no confirmation on anything in terms of like what the movie's going to be about or whatever. With Spider-Man stuff, it's always like a fucking thing where it's like, oh, I wait for the behind the scenes stuff. Like you get a picture of Tom Holland like looking back and being like, oh, what's he doing? So yeah. We're gonna have to go through all of that again. So yeah, I guess we'll see when they actually show a trailer. But I feel like it's still kind of a ways out until we actually know what the fuck is even going on with this movie. So I just hope for street level stuff, please, for the love of God.
Yes, we could get like a Ant-Man 2 situation where it does come out after Avengers Infinity War or whatever, but it ties into Endgame with like the after credit scene or whatever. Spider-Man 4 can't do that. It can release after Doomsday. It could be like a Spider-Man centric story with Daredevil in it, ideally, because obviously that's what everyone fucking wants. Everyone keeps talking about that year after year because more people are watching Daredevil. And if we get that, and then the after credit scene ties into Secret Wars somehow, and Daredevil and Spider-Man get sent up to space, because Spider-Man is he's so far removed from the Avengers now, because now no one knows who the fuck he is. It's like, this is literally the perfect storyline. You could just do a Peter Parker Spider-Man story of him trying to figure out what it means to be Spider-Man again. And yeah, I just don't want them to fumble it up with another multiverse shenanigan bullshit off the bat. Like obviously, like give us this one movie that pays homage to the ending that John Watts gave us, and then do whatever the fuck you want afterwards. I don't care. Tie it into the Venom movies. Pull out Nolan, do all this crazy bullshit. I don't care. Just give us Spider-Man 4 to be something that is familiar, that is grounded, that is something that Tom Holland and Kevin Feige want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. So hopefully we get that, but again, it's all speculation at this point. We just have to wait and see what Disney wants to do with this boy, and we'll see what happens, because this is the first time a Spider-Man is going to be in a fourth movie in general. So it's going to be interesting to see how they develop Tom Holland's character, because again, I think we both like Tom Holland as Spider-Man. So I really do want to see him grow as the character, maybe a more mature Spider-Man and stuff. So, but again, we will see when that happens. Alrighty, so Venom. So yeah, speaking of Venom, we got The Last Dance. So this is, the conclusion of Venom's storyline for the Sonyverse movies. And, I haven't watched any of them yet, though this trailer does look really stupid and funny. So it's just like, it's whatever. With these movies, at first I was like mad at them, because I'm like, we're never going to get Venom in the MCU. We're not going to get symbiotes or whatever. Like, that sucks. And I was kind of down on that. Let There Be Carnage, I heard, was just not good in general. I don't know. Like, some people liked it, but it was just kind of dumb. This one does look like, they're having fun with it. Like, these movies, again, they know what they want to be. They're stupid fun. They really are like 2000 comic book movies. Like, they never left. Like, these are like the comic book movies I remember existing back in the day. So it's kind of cool that it still exists with Venom. And, of all the Sonyverse stuff, this probably is the one that feels like it has the most love put into it. Just because, like, one, it makes the most money, but two, like, they just kind of care about it a bit more. Like, does anyone give a shit about Kraven, the Kraven movie? Like, probably fucking not. Like, sitting with Morbius or with Madam Web, like, those movies are just bad. At least with Venom, it's like, yeah, they might be bad, but at least they're having a really fun time doing it, right? So, like, it's whatever.
Yeah, as someone who has watched the previous Venom movies, Venom 1 was definitely having a identity crisis. It didn't know if it wanted to be the serious comic book movie or if it wanted to do the more jokey, funny stuff. And then Let There Be Carnage was a little bit more jokey, but you had Carnage in there, who is a very serious character, and they sort of, played to that within certain jokes or whatever. But, it definitely was playing more towards the jokey side. And now it seems like that they're just going all in with it. Ever since the first trailer, now with this one, it seems like that they're just going balls to the wall with it, and it's sort of bringing everything back to the first movie where, the symbiote Riot that he fought within the first movie, he wasn't trying to fight him or take over the world, as he said. He was just trying to run away from fucking KNULL, who is a very recent Venom sort of character that they brought into the comics, who's like a super overpowered. I think he's like the god of symbiotes and shit like that. You know, I did read that run with Donny Cates up until like issue 20 or 30 or something like that, but I forget most of the content, to be honest. The one thing that I remember was issue 4, which was when KNULL got introduced, and obviously there was a very surprise cameo with Spider-Man by Miles Morales. I was like, oh, okay, like he's fucking in here. And obviously, you know, with Miles' history of symbiotes, he was very upset with teaming up with Venom at that moment, but it fucking made sense. So yeah, the fact that KNULL is in this movie is absolutely batshit crazy, because like this is now the second mainstream piece of Spider-Man media that is using elements from that. You know, first we had Spider-Man 2, which was also very surprising. I was like, yo, what the fuck? And Insomniac's pulling that from the comics? That is so cool. But obviously, you know, the comic creators are still asking for like royalties and stuff like that, which I think is fair. That is 100% fair for them to get, you know, like a little bit of something for them to use their characters and sort of their storylines within, you know, new pieces of media. You know, I will always think it's cool to see new comic book stuff get transferred into the mainstream, but always give credit where credit's due. And obviously these guys created KNULL and sort of that storyline, and however they adapt it, I hope it lands. But yeah, KNULL is such a cool character, and I cannot wait to see the full reveal when we see it in theaters. But yeah, Venom, The Last Dance, the fact that this is going to be the last Venom movie, I'm very, very excited. Is this going to be the last time we see, what's his name, as Eddie Brock? I have no idea, but, you know, I'm excited, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, maybe I will give them a watch. You know, I definitely have lightened up on the idea of these movies, just because I'm like, you know what? I'm just seeing all the other bullshit that the Sonyverse pumped out. I'm like, maybe I treated you too harshly. You know, like maybe I have. So maybe I will give them a watch and see how they are, just for dumb fun. And if they're ending out with a bang, then might as well, right? Because this movie probably will make a shit ton of money, because these Venom movies make like a lot more than they probably should. So yeah. I guess we'll just have fun with it. I still want like Venom in a proper MCU thing or something. Like that would be neat, just because it's such a prominent villain for Spider-Man. But you know, if this is all we're gonna get from him in the big screen, then so be it, I guess.
Yeah, because, you know, apparently the contract between Disney and Sony is that if Sony uses the villain, they can't use it within the MCU unless it's that version of the character or whatever the hell the rumors and speculation go on. But yeah, Venom: The Last Dance, it is coming out later this year on October 25th, so that is pretty dope. Anyways, Damian, is there anything else you would like to add, good sir?
No, that's about everything.
All right, so thank you guys for listening to the Travis and Damian podcast, episode 146. We will see you guys 2 weeks from now with another episode.
Later.